was pretty good energy. We'll try it one more time. Are you guys having a great day at Arizona Science Center? Yeah! That was way better. Okay, my name is Jessica, and today I'm going to talk to you about ancient Egyptian mummification. So before we get into actually mummifying our friend here, we need to talk about what a mummy is. So does anybody know what a mummy is? Is it Brendan Fraser chasing after mummies, hunting them down? No, what do you think a mummy is? What do you think? A wrapped up pharaoh. Okay, any other ideas? Anybody else? So a mummy is a preserved body. So a dead body that is preserved. So there can be many different types of mummies. Sometimes it happens naturally in the environment, maybe a hot desert or where it's really cold and icy. Sometimes you find them naturally, like the Peruvian mummies. Sometimes there's bog mummies. So there's different elements in the earth that can preserve a body naturally. But the ancient Egyptians did it on purpose. So they wanted to keep around dead bodies. Why do you think they wanted to do that? It's kind of weird. Any thoughts? What do you think? Okay, to keep away their spirits and go to heaven. What do you think? Do you have any ideas why they want to keep around a body? No? Right, you're on the right track. So, the afterlife. So they preserved bodies for the purpose of an afterlife. And they actually wanted the spirit to come back inside their body. So by preserving it, they keep it from rotting so that it still looks like them, so that the soul of the spirit can find them and come back into them. And then they can move on to the afterlife. So the idea of going somewhere after you die was very important to ancient Egyptians. It was their whole life. So a lot of people think that ancient Egyptians were obsessed with death because of the whole mummification thing and tombs. But really they were obsessed with life, and that's why it was so important to them to build things like pyramids and tombs and preserve the body. Those things were very important to their existence. So for example, we have the Great Pyramids, which you know are tombs to some of the great pharaohs, and then we have some animal mummies, which are really neat. So now that we know the how and why of mummies and what they are, we can go ahead and get started on showing you how somebody was mummified in ancient Egypt. And to do that, I need a volunteer. Take two. How about you right there, and in the white crocheted shirt. Okay, come on up. So, ancient Egyptian mummification was a highly religious, ritualistic experience, ceremony. So the priests did it, and so priests were also knowledgeable of the human anatomy and of their religion, because they had to read a lot of prayers over this. Everything had to be done for the purpose of traveling to the afterlife. So you guys are going to be my priests, and this is our deceased here. And we are going to travel to the Ibu, or the place of purification. And a lot of people think that pharaohs were the ones that got mummified, but it actually was a lot of people. So maybe at first it was a lot of wealthy people who could afford the mummification. But over time it became more available to everybody, so even like the middle class or the commoners even got mummified. So we're going to start with our body here. And you are going to take this cloth and wash the body down with water from the Nile. So you're just going to wash it. So to the ancient Egyptians, the Nile River was sacred. That was their lifeline, literally. That's all the water they had in the desert. So the Nile River was very holy to them. So they would wash the body, water from the Nile. Very good, you were an excellent washer. And then they would take a scalpel or a knife, and they would make an incision in the left side of the body. So that was done with the purpose to get inside and take out the organs. Why would we want to remove the organs? What do you guys think? Okay. Alright, what do you think? Remember what the purpose of mummification was? To do what to the body? Preserve it. So they want to preserve the organs, but they also know that organs rot fast. So if we don't preserve those and get those out, the whole body is going to decompose. So what they would do is they would make that decision, they would start taking out body parts, organs. There you go, there's a stomach for you. Have some lungs. Cool. Okay. So those there's a place of purification. So those organs would then get placed in something called canopic jars. So canopic jars were much larger than this. This is just a mini version. But those would be the home to our organs, and then they would be preserved inside of them. There was usually some sort of hieroglyphic script, religious text on there. Sometimes, it's a 3,000-year-old history, so sometimes this evolved over time. They would be wrapped back up and put in the body. But for our purpose, we're just going to put them in jars later. We'll put that over here. And you said something earlier about the heart, that it was left in, because the Egyptians thought that this was the center of thought and feeling. So the heart was super important to them. They wanted to keep that in their body for the afterlife. They thought that was where the thinking comes from and all of your emotions come from. So that was left in. But we know that what body part really does it. The brain, yes. So the Egyptians didn't know that. They did something else completely different with the brain. They would take, I'll show you guys first. Can you hand me the hooked item right there? So they would take a hooked tool, and that would get inserted into the nostril. And then, the hammer. And then that was hammered in through the skull, into the brain, and whirled around to break up all the brain matter. And then, the brain was pulled out through the nostril. There you go, have some brains. There you go. They didn't care about that, it was usually just tossed. And so up here on the screen you can see some of the tools they used in the mummification process, as well as the tool being inserted into the brain. So that's how they got that out. Wasn't important. So now we have our body still that is clear of organs except for the heart. Now what do we need to do? What do you think? Yeah, good job. They put a kind of salt on it, and that salt was called natron. So it's a naturally occurring substance, kind of a mixture of baking soda and salt, and that was poured over the body. So go ahead and pretend to pour that over the body, because it's still kind of wet and we need it to dry out. Thank you. So then we leave it there for 40 days. But we don't have 40 days, so we're going to pretend it's already done like the cooking show. Here it is. So now the body, after 30, 40 days, has been all dried out. It's kind of like jerky. So it's maybe a little sunken in and shriveled. And to make it more lifelike, we want to stuff it so it kind of puffs back out again. The Egyptians would probably use something like sawdust, but we're going to use paper. So if you could go ahead and stuff that cavity there. Perfect. That's good. Okay. So now it's looking a little more lifelike, but we also want it to smell good and have nice skin. So go ahead and grab that. These would be scented oils, and they would pour that over the body. Rub it all over. Perfect. Okay. And then the most important part is the wrapping. So they would take yards and yards of linen, several layers of it, and they would wrap it up. So go ahead and give that a try, guys. We have to work together on it. So like I said earlier, this was a very ritualistic religious experience. So the priest would usually say prayers over it while they were wrapping. Different things that had the purpose of guiding the person into the afterlife so they were safe and they got there successfully. I know it's not as easy as it looks. So while they were doing this, they would also put in amulets. So amulets were symbols that were reflective of protection or of good luck and of hope to help them get to the afterlife. So this one is called the Ankh, and the Ankh represents life and prosperity. So this is always a classic one. You'll see a lot of hieroglyphics and wall murals with this on it. Usually a deity holding it. And this one is called the Eye of Horus. Those are both up there on the screen. Eye of Horus was a very important protection symbol. So that was very common to put along with the mummies. They were protected from evil spirits. Alright, how you guys doing here? Alright, that's good. We'll leave it with that. So yes, oftentimes the wealthier you were, the more linen wrappings you got. Sometimes you weren't wrapped very well. So I will have my priest sit down. Go ahead, thank you, round of applause. So now that our mummy's all wrapped up, what happens? Usually they get placed in a tomb, and the body lays there for thousands of years until we discover it. But because the ancient Egyptians believed so strongly in an afterlife, they had many tales, legends, relating to where they went after they died. So I'm going to show you guys a little bit of that. And for that, I need 2 volunteers, somebody different who hasn't helped. Blackchin and right there, the Peanuts character range. Okay, we're going to have you wear this. I'll explain in a second. You get the heart of the mummy. Okay, so the Egyptians believed that once the person was mummified, their soul would travel to the afterlife and go to the halls of truth, where they would meet the god Osiris. I'm going to pretend to be Osiris. You're the mummy, and you will present me with your heart. Remember, that is the center of thought and feeling, all of your deeds, everything's in there. So the heart was then placed on a golden scale and weighed against the feather of truth. If the heart was lighter than the feather, you get to go on to paradise. However, if it's heavier than the feather, it's thrown to the ground and eaten by the crocodile god Amenti. You have to gobble it up. Gobble. Okay, good job. Yes, so, you don't want to go that way. All right, thank you guys for helping me. Round of applause for them. We don't know what happened to our mummy, but hopefully they were judged well in the afterlife. But I did want to show you some really cool things here. This is how mummies used to be unwrapped not too long ago. They would just take them all apart, take all the good stuff out of them, the amulets, and just open it up so it was a body again. And this essentially destroys the mummy, and you can't really do a whole lot of studying after that. So what scientists do today is they use CT scans, which is kind of like a 3D X-ray. They put it through this, and it can take layered images of everything inside of it, so you can unwrap it digitally. It's really cool. We can study these mummies without actually having to destroy them. And these are pictures of Annie, our mummy upstairs. This is what she was unloaded in. This is a temperature-controlled box with lots of padding, because she has to be at a nice temperature so she doesn't start to, all of her materials start to decompose. There she is in her box. And that is a curator who examines her every time she leaves somewhere and comes somewhere new to different science centers or museums. And she has to put her little goggles on and the light and study every little fiber to make sure everything's still good. And that is a picture of our lovely Annie upstairs. If you haven't seen her yet, you guys should definitely visit. But the really cool thing about mummies is whether they actually went to an afterlife or not, we don't know. But it's really awesome. In a way, they're immortal because they're still here today to spark our wonder and curiosity about ancient Egypt, which is really awesome. So thank you guys, and I hope you have a wonderful day.